There we go.
All right, sweet. Well, Glenn, thank you so much again. We had niceties before we hit record. Now it's not going to make sense to people. Awesome. All right. Well, we're here to do the Leggggs interview. I'm just gonna start it off. I'm just gonna start firing the questions out, and you can just answer them, be as verbose and as grandiose and all the other oses as you want, man. This is
How
your
about humbleos? Because I'm
humble
more,
us too. I like
yeah.
humble us. I think we should trademark that. All right, cool. So, yeah, just starting at the beginning. Who are you, man? Where can we find you online? What do we need to do to figure out where you are?
Yeah. So my name is Glenn. You can find me on Strava as Glenn Gabriel Bona, and on Instagram, if you're into that, Stokes.zip, spelled like it sounds. And then I also have a podcast that I need to rebirth. It's called Nomad Wolf. I also interview other trail and endurance-minded people there. And yeah, me and my buddy Ben, I'll talk about him later in this interview. We started up a little side project that kind of um, is still figuring itself out. So that's nomadwolf.co. So
Sweet, a lot of
yeah,
lot of places. Dig it.
yep.
Yeah, I want to know more about that podcast. So we'll talk about that in a second. But
Mhm.
so outside of podcasting and running and yeah, just being you. What do you do?
Yeah, so outside of eating, sleeping, and running, which is pretty much all that I do, I'm an SEO and content strategist at an agency called Omniscient Digital. We help tech and B2B SaaS companies pretty much fill up their funnel and also drive conversions and leads.
Nice, nice. Um, Content, man. Everyone needs content. I love content.
Yeah, I know
Content.
you love content.
That's good. All right. So switching gears a little bit, as they say. What's your personal mission? Like if you had to sum yourself up maybe in one sentence,
Oh
what is
man. Yeah, I had to think this one over a little bit because I didn't want to be too grandiose about like, yo, if David Goggins is doing this, then what is Glenn doing?
right?
Um
Disclaimer: Glenn has seen these questions before now. And spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. I've come prepared. I always come prepared for
I
these.
love it.
So yeah, I think my personal mission is mostly to put myself in places that I've never expected of myself, and then hopefully that inspires others to also put themselves in places, whether that's physically in the world, so outside of their current bubble that they might just live in, and just explore more of themselves and of the world by foot.
Nice. Um, okay, so this is a curveball. This kind of just a follow up to that. That's not on the questions list. What's the first step, no pun intended, for someone to just kind of like take that leap into exploring the world by foot? Like what was the tip?
I guess the biggest tip that has enabled me to explore more of the world by foot is to just sign up for a race in a very different city or in a very different place that you're used to, and then just train for that thing and then get to the start line. I feel like traveling has kind of been more or less like, I don't want to say routine because everybody's travel experience is like very different, right? But for the most part, I think with social media, you kind of just do things for the gram. You like see places for the gram, and then you kind of just take the photo and say that you've been there and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And in essence, I think that traveling has been, yeah, it still serves its purpose for like the person experiencing it, but I feel like we're almost doing it for other things and maybe the wrong things. And why I push for racing in different places is because the phone's away, you're just interacting with their environment, you're seeing things by foot that you normally wouldn't see if you weren't running a race there.
A good call, man. Like so, yeah, exploring the new city by foot instead of by car, by tourist charter or something like that. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, good segue into another tip. But why did you get into running, or when did you get into running, and then why?
Um, so, I've done the casual half marathon in San Diego years before I actually took running seriously. So I first legitimately got into running when I was training for my first marathon, just because I thought a marathon was such a huge feat in my head. And it still is,
Yeah.
right? Don't let me downplay anybody training for a
Oh,
marathon or doing
marathons.
that sort of effort. But for me personally, it was a bucket list item. I wanted to do one before I turned 30, and I thought it was just going to be a one and done thing. But during the whole training process, I noticed that the more things that I had on my plate, whether it was like training and also work and other things, the more I was able to just, stick to my guns and stick to commitments. And I don't know, I just found out more to myself in that process. And I just wanted to keep that process close to me and just fall in love with it even more.
Thanks, dude.
So yeah, it just became more serious after that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, that's a good story. I think it's kind of like the like in the last interview we had, the guy mentioned that like getting into running, working at an aid station, for instance, was kind of like a gateway drug to getting into into the whole scene. Similar, yeah, like training for a marathon, getting like that routine, understanding what your body can do, kind of like pushing and pushing, and then being like, holy shit, I did it. Well,
Yeah,
let's see what else it can do, right? Like that's yeah,
exactly. It's
cool.
always going after that curiosity.
Mhm.
And yeah, going after that curiosity always makes life way more interesting.
Yeah, I dig it. All right, what type of run gets you the most stoked? What gets you going the most?
Um,
What's your favorite type of
this answer is pretty short and sweet. So long runs on the trail with friends.
run?
Boom.
Boom.
It's exponentially better when you share it with someone, because the struggle is just shared and spread amongst everyone. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that we always struggle together, but like other people will always uplift the other one during that long run.
yeah,
And I don't know, it's just a good excuse to be out in nature, experiencing things again with, just the environment and the sensory overload that is being out in nature on a trail with your friends. You don't know what you're going to see, you don't know what the weather's going to be like that day. And you always come back with a story to tell. And
mm,
I just love those like 5 hour or longer missions where you're just out there and you
yeah,
don't know what the day is going to bring, but it's going to be awesome.
yeah. Like nothing to answer to except for those around you and your legs, basically. Just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, your legs with 4Gs.
Or geez, that was not a product placement, I promise. All right, so then on that note, do you have like a particular favorite run that stands out in your mind from one of those 5 hour missions? Like, who
um
was it? Who was it with? Where was it?
yeah, so this was, I think, back in October. I was training for my first 100 miler, and I was with two friends that were also training for the same 100 miler. It was a race that was supposed that took place in December of 2020, 2021. We're in 2022 now, right?
Time's a flat circle. I have no idea what it is.
Well, after COVID, it's just like, wait,
Okay, yeah.
so the COVID years, yeah, so it was
The COVID
2021.
years.
I think it was 2021. Anyways, yeah, so we were both training, or all three of us were training for our first 100 miler. And it was during our peak week, our peak training week. So there was like a 3 week block where you just you're after fitness, you're pushing your limits. And yeah, so me and my two friends set out to complete a 50K, which is about 30 miles, running a mountain loop up in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand. Um, and this, yeah, you could do 3 loops and that would land you like 40K. But if you make it down on the other side of the mountain, that adds a little extra to give you the 50, right? It turned out to be 55, but we can go into that later. Um, anyways, I remember just being, I think at that moment, just recognizing that I was in the best shape of my life, right? Um, and doing 30 miles on Saturday and following that up later with 16 miles on Sunday, with also like 13 miles on that Friday. I was just like, yeah, no problem. Like, this is gonna be
Yeah.
fun, right?
Yeah.
The problem was I gave blood on that Friday after I did 13 miles, and I stupidly just didn't account for that at all while I was doing the 30-mile effort.
Yeah.
So I was like, not charging. I was like power hiking um the second loop, and for some reason I was just like completely out of it. Like, my I felt like super lightheaded. Um I I was fueling, so I knew it wasn't a bonk or anything, but I was just struggling hardcore. And the
Mhm.
two friends that I was with, I wouldn't say that they weren't um physically there. They were pushing and I wasn't able to keep up, and I
Mhm.
knew something was off. And then all of a sudden it just hit me. I was like, this probably has to do with the fact that I gave blood the day before, you know? And I was like, why did I do that? I messed up my fitness. And I was in my mind, I was like, it was for a great cause, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
all of that. Anyways, we made it to the top, and there's this little village on top of the mountain. Um, the mountain's called, or the town is called Kunchangkian. And that's where we kind of like load up on snacks, coffee, and we also have lunch up there. It takes 10 kilometers to make that loop back to the village. So you like hit the village, do 10 kilometers, and then you're like back up there.
Mhm.
And we get back to the restaurant, and all of us were just completely dead. It was super hot. I think it was like 1 p.m. peak Thai heat,
Yeah.
and all of us were just so out of it. I come in last, and then all of a sudden I just see like my buddies just like sprawled out. And then I just start laughing because I was just like, we're just insane. Like, this is awesome that we're like all struggling together. I remind them that I gave blood, and they're just like, well, you're here and you made it. And that was just like a really good reminder that, like, you could still, I don't want to, recommend giving blood and like training, but it's just amazing how like the body and the mind can like sort of overpower and push you to your limits and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome to again share that suffer with two other people that, you know, we're training for this really big project, and to see it pan out and have the memories like that. It's just incredible.
I think the name of this episode is going to be called like "Do not recommend donating blood before running 30 miles" or something. I don't know. Well, it's a work in progress. I'm gonna work on
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
gonna be
Well, we can make it more clickbaity,
yeah.
but I
10
mean,
reasons not to. Number four will
exactly,
surprise you. Um,
exactly.
dude, that's one of the best running stories I've ever heard. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not just saying that because we're recording or because you're on camera. Like that's fucking awesome. And like,
You should hear my next one about
yeah, is
my
that the follow up about the worst running story? Let's
this is
let's
good.
just let's just jump into it since you.
This one's gonna blow that first one out of the water. So
All right, all right.
so this one took place a week before the best run of my life, right? And it was with one of the training partners that came up. His name is Joseph. The other one was Tara, by the way. Um, Anyways, I was having a really solid training day with Joseph. We did a 50K on Saturday, and then the Sunday one was just 24. So like kind of half of that, right? And we were doing the loops up in Kunchangkian. Except this loop goes all the way up to the summit called Doi Pui. And there's a segment on Strava where it's about, you do 800 feet in about like 1.5 kilometers. So it's a good amount of vert.
Yeah,
It's also really rocky and rooty. So it's really great training for how the terrain is supposed to be at Thailand by UTMB.
mm,
Anyways, we like celebrate. We're like pretty thrashed because of just the weekend, and we're just gonna head back down and have some beers and stuff like that. Anyway, on the way back down, I noticed just this huge buzzing thing around my leg, right? I didn't think anything of it. And then I just like moved my hand like right next to my thigh, and like I didn't violently swat it away, but I
yeah.
like moved it. And then all of a sudden, I just feel this hot electrical knife searing pain in my thigh. And I was like, I just yell. I was like, what the fuck was that? Right. And I didn't even think like about the buzzing thing. I was like, okay, one, it's not a snake because it's not on my ankle, right?
Right.
And then before I knew it, I was just getting like hammered with other stings, and then I just freak out. Like I went, my buddy called it cartoon mode, where he just saw me like flail. My poles are like strapped to my wrists, and I'm just like charging this like downhill segment that's incredibly technical, and I'm just like running, yelling, flailing, something that you would see out of the movies or a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like I just hear in the back of my head, because my buddy's behind me, he was just like, "Oh shit." And then all of a sudden he starts yelling and running, and we're just like running for our lives pretty much. So we're just sprinting down this trail, and eventually I think I outrun these hornets, these massive hornets, and I feel thrashed. I got a sting on my head, my arms, my back, my legs. And once I get to a clearing and there's no hornets around me, I look back and I'm just like waiting for my friend. I'm yelling my friend's name, like, "Joseph, are you all right?" Eventually he starts coming out of the brush. And then he was just like, "Dude, that was fucked." And then I was like, "Yeah, we gotta go. Like, we gotta, I'm thinking we have to seek medical attention."
Yeah, sure.
And it sucks because like the trail is like somewhat so technical that it would probably take us maybe 20 to 30 minutes to get back to like the village that we usually stop and eat at.
Mhm.
And we're like, obviously freaking out, running down. I remember hearing one of my friends say that he runs with the EpiPen because he's allergic to bees. I'm not allergic to bees. My buddy isn't allergic to bees. So it was just like a really frantic time. I remember getting back into town, going to this little hole in the wall cafe, and then just pointing at like my enlarged like bumps on my arm and stuff like that. And then she was just like, she's speaking in Thai, and she was just like mimicking the hornet. She gives me ointment, and then we were just wondering if we could like get a ride down from the top of the mountain to the closest hospital. Um, the cafe owner pulls out his pickup truck. We get in. Um, it takes about 40 minutes to get to the closest hospital, because we're, like I said, we're at the top of this remote mountain, and the city of Chiang Mai is like a really windy drive back. And while we were in the pickup truck trying to calm ourselves and looking at our wounds, my buddy Joseph stupidly pulls up an article, and then he was like, "Dude, those are Asian giant hornets, and a tour guide died from getting too many stings." And we're like counting our stings, like this tour guide had 20, my buddy had 15 on him, I had 10 on me. We get to the hospital, we do blood work, you know, we're fine. My buddy has to stay over at the hospital just because he's like 55 training
Yeah.
for like races like these. um and yeah, that was the worst run of my life. Also makes for a great story, hence why I said
Yeah.
it. But it gets even better. So I forgot to say, on the best run of my life, that we go back to the cafe, that the cafe owner that drove us to the hospital, and we're sitting down having lunch. It's amazing that we're like back out there training the week after this
Right.
incredible experience.
Yeah.
But we go back to the cafe owner, and he obviously recognizes us, and he just has this huge smile on his face. And we're like, his name is Ya, and we're like, "Yeah, you're happy to see us. Very, very, we're super thankful for you taking us to the hospital." And then he was just like, he had this huge smile on his face, and then he was just saying "Gin" something. And "Gin" in Thailand, or in Thai language, means to eat. And we were like, "Eat what?" And then he pulls out his phone, and then he shows us his dinner from like days before. And he actually went back up to that spot, smoked out the hornets, and cooked them and ate them. And he sealed the hole. So with Asian
What?
giant hornets, you couldn't see the nest because they actually nest underground, right?
Yeah, I'm looking him up right now, by the way.
Yeah. And so he smoked them out, emptied the whole nest, ate them, and then covered the hole with concrete.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This guy's, we called him a superhero. We called him Superman. And
They're
that's why it was, yeah, they're huge. They're terrifying. They're they're the real deal.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you only had like 10 and your buddy only had 15 because it sounds like 20 was like the tipping point there. Jesus, dude. That's
Yeah.
intense.
It is intense. It is a story that not too many people know about.
Yeah.
But it's been like, about a year removed since the experience. And
Wow.
yeah,
Um,
easily the best story that I can lend.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone that's listening will appreciate it too. So I guess that's kind of a good segue too into the next question about gear. Outside of like an EpiPen, what's 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 some gear that you can't not run with, or what's some of your favorite running gear?
So the gear that I'm probably most obsessed with is the naked belt. And it's pretty much just a runner's belt, but you essentially can strap on anything from your poles to your bib. I keep all my food or even my cell phone. I even brought like a little film camera on my 100-mile run in that belt. And
Nice.
now it's just a essential piece of gear that I would recommend to anybody. Even though I have like a really great Solomon pack that's 12 liters for longer missions,
Mm,
I had that plus um, the naked belt for my 100K at UTMB and then also the 100-mile. And it was just perfect. I just easy access for your food or your gels or whatever you're bringing. For shorter runs or for longer runs, I love it. I even like if I'm wearing basketball shorts on a run and there's no pockets there, I sometimes use that to just use my naked belt in conjunction with no pocket pants or shorts to just go out. Like it acts like, I can keep my wallet and my phone there and it's just easy access.
yeah, dude, I can just like imagine you like out at the club or something with no pockets in your pants, but you're like, whoa, I got it.
I got it. I'm there. I'm always prepared,
You want my ID? Here
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
I love it.
I'm a huge convert. So
All
I
right.
mean, yeah, running belts in general, but the naked belt, I highly recommend
All
it.
right. Good to know. Um, what's your footwear looking like? What are your favorite shoes for different terrains? What are you wearing for the road and the trail?
Yeah, so I'm a believer in mixing up your footwear, right? Um, so in terms of differences in stack height, like I sometimes train with ultra running shoes because they have that 0 foot drop. I don't run in it all the time, but I like to mix up the stack height and also just the shoe. What I race in is usually a Saucony just because of the foot shape that it lends to me because I have pretty wide feet. I've noticed that when I run in Saucony, like I don't lose as many toenails, which is also a good thing.
That's a
Uh,
bonus. Yeah.
yeah, and
That's just slow you down though. Like I'm glad mine are gone, you know.
yeah, yeah. Did you surgically remove them?
Not yet, but I mean, at
It's
this
getting
point,
there.
like,
It's
what
getting
are they
there.
gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I actually did the 100K CCC in Hoka Speedgo 5s just because they have a wide foot option. Um, but I think I would just keep that for shorter races. I do love the cushion there. But for the most part, I think I'm a huge Saucony guy. But I am really excited for the that what is it, the Ultrafly trails.
Oh God,
Um,
dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
they look beautiful.
Oh, it looks so
They're
nice.
super lightweight. I think there's one review on YouTube by the Ginger Runner, and he loved them. So you know, I definitely want to add that to my quiver.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of like teaser stuff for that. I mean, Tyler's wearing them a lot, and then yeah, I've seen the YouTube, and I don't know. I want them so bad. They'll come
Do you
out.
know?
They'll come out. It'll be
Yeah,
nice.
do you know when? Is there like a
I
projected
heard
date?
2023. That's all I've
Oof,
heard.
okay,
But I mean, with the way time is going, like we mentioned at the top of this, like that could be tomorrow. So
exactly.
yeah,
I'm
awesome.
excited.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. So hornets aside, sort of blood draws aside, what is a quote that you repeat to yourself when shit's getting real on the trail or on the road? Like you just need something to keep yourself going. I got this
Yeah.
moment? What do you say to yourself?
Yeah. So this is like a sort of mantra that I've come across on maybe it was like my third ultra. It was a 80K, and I was still recovering from a pretty bad DNF, my first DNF, the race before. And the mantra is every step is a step of belief. And when things get really, really, really tough and you're thinking like, oh, I can't make it, you have to like think of belief as something that you can like work towards. And I don't know, every step that I took inched towards more of that belief that you could finish a race or you could get to the next checkpoint. And I echoed that mantra to both my friends, Tara and Joseph, that I ran the 100 mile with. And they use that mantra as well. And yeah, I don't know. I would think that I would come up with an even sweeter mantra. But that one just fits and works at all times. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see that working on like a mile walk or a 100 mile run. Like just keep going. I like it.
exactly.
Well, you have headphones in now, but when you run, what's your thought on headphones versus no headphones?
I go no headphones.
No headphones. All
Yeah,
right.
no headphones. It took a while for me to make the transition to no headphones, but I fully appreciate just it's again like interacting and being like in the environment and just like focusing on your breath or like what's around you. I
Mhm.
also feel like running trails, especially technical trails, with headphones, it's like really distracting. You like get out of flow.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're running roads, surely like, yeah, there are times when I put on a really good set or
Yeah.
I have like a playlist and those are really great. But for the most part, yeah, people ask me like, "Oh, what did you listen to on your 100K?" And I was like, "Nothing. I didn't even bring headphones."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I brought headphones on my first marathon and realized at like mile 25 and a half or so that it was a terrible idea because you just kind of miss the stoke. You miss the whole like fanfare and people yelling your name and all that. And I'm like sitting there listening to an Alkaline Trio song that I've heard like 3,000 times before, but I'm like, oh man, it's Pump Up. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I can
exactly.
listen to it afterwards.
Exactly. You can celebrate it during your post-run beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of pump up music, what's your pump up jam? Like what do you use to get going? Like you said you put on a good list or set. What
Yeah.
does that include?
So I actually found this on, Satisfy Running, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Of
one
course.
of their
That's such an
playlists.
asshole answer. Like, oh, of course, in the satisfied. Yeah, I've heard of them.
All right, you pay the prices. You
I've got a couple of their pieces. Yeah.
so one of their playlists, I they have this song called Ecstasy of Gold by Ennio Morricone. And literally, I don't know, before every big race, I listen to that and it just gets me in the moment. It's one of those classic songs that you would hear like in an old vintage film, like
Mhm.
a vintage cowboy film. And I relate it similarly to you remember that movie Gladiator
Yeah.
where where he squats down and he picks up the dirt and he like moves it in his hands like this and he
Mhm.
just gets like ready, gets in the zone. I put on that track and that just like gets me into the right zone, into the right like I'm gonna crush this or
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish. And yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, like put yourself in that moment. Any song that can do that, that's a winner right there. That's good.
Hmm.
So before that moment, like when you're sort of talking yourself into getting into running, or like not getting into running, but going for a run, getting into an activity, how do you convince yourself to get up, get out the door, do it? What's your
Um,
wisdom there?
to be honest, like I think right now I don't need much convincing at this point. It's more like if I can get my shoes on, then I'm out the door, right? So
Yeah.
I think like the biggest step is just to put your foot in your shoe, and that's all the convincing that I need. Um, I think for the most part, this is just a lifestyle at this point, right? And I remember before I found running or before I got into running, I was always looking for that one hobby or that one sport that would take me into my old age, I thought it was going to be golfing. I thought it was going to be surfing. I thought it was going to be a bunch of other things, right?
Sure.
But now it's like most of my time outside of work is just focused on, okay, did I get enough sleep so I can run the best,
Mhm.
or did I eat enough, did I eat the right foods so that I'm not having diarrhea when I run
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that. It's always related to running.
Yeah.
Even my
Totally.
work, even with SEO and content marketing. If you don't publish pieces that are optimized for SEO every week, then you're not going to see the effects over 6 months of your work, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, it's all the long-term game. So it happens every single day. So I don't really need too much convincing, and I hope people just put on their shoes and get out the door.
Do you just equate running to SEO? Like
Yeah,
search engine optimization?
yeah,
Dude, that's the ultimate crossroads. That's great.
yeah.
Brilliant. Well done. Well done. I was waiting for it. It's kind of like the Hackman Kane theory from PCU. Like you can figure out those crossroads. It's SEO you're
Exactly.
doing. All right, I dig it. All right. All right, what is like a place you're all over the place. You're all over the world. Your Strava is like the most inspirational one maybe I follow, but um what's your bucket list place to run? What are some places that you haven't checked off the list yet?
Yeah. So the main one that I really, really want to do is the 100-mile ultra trail Mount Fuji. You pretty much go around Mount Fuji, and what's so interesting about it, besides the place and the terrain, and it being an international race with people that I've never met but I'm excited to meet, and also the food that at the aid stations, like what do they have there? Like, do they have
Yeah.
noodles? Like, am I just gonna be fed sushi? Like, this is gonna be awesome. I don't know. But
Just
I
wasabi flavored goo jelly.
I might get diarrhea then.
That might do it. That might do
Yeah,
it.
that might do it. But what's so interesting about that is they have a firm rule against using poles.
Oh,
And
cool.
I just found out about that. And it's terrifying to think that, like, oh yeah, you can't use hiking poles during a race that is somewhat set in their rainy season. So I just imagine like a bit of a mud fest without poles
Yeah.
that terrifies me, but it also excites me.
Do you know
Um,
why there's no polls?
I don't know. I actually don't know why,
Yeah.
or if there's a
Worried about
underlying
people just
philosophy.
like helicoptering around.
Yeah,
Maybe you
yeah. Him disqualified. Yeah. Yeah,
That's interesting though.
you can't even use a branch from a tree or a stick to like use as poles that you like find.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Must be like
And
something to do
then
with like your own physical capability,
yeah,
not the aid
exactly.
of, yeah, third party.
So it's probably gonna take me a while to like feel like I'm at a certain level of fitness. Obviously, it's going to take a ton of training without poles to just get you. It's almost like headphones, right?
Yeah.
Like you get used to not running with headphones. Maybe you get
Right.
used to not running with poles. Um,
I'll add that to the questions moving forward.
yeah, yeah. And then two other races that I'm excited about. The Lavaredo race, which is through the Dolomites.
Oh,
Um,
sweet.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is really interesting to me just because I've never seen the Dolomites or
Yeah.
the Pyrenees. So those are mountain ranges that I would love to do a race in. And then lastly, Western states, just for the culture.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
seems so rad. Awesome. Good stuff. All right. So you kind of dipped into this a little bit, but like putting your shoes on is just the first step, the tipping point to kind of exploring the world by foot. But what's some of the no bullshit advice you would give to someone if they wanted to start running? Like getting it.
Yeah. So pretty much I would recommend this to everyone, and I wish I jumped into this sooner, but finding a local run club or a Facebook group, just having friends in the community to do the activity with just keeps you in the stoke and just keeps you in the sport much longer. I remember training for trails before I even knew other people in Bangkok did trails.
Hmm.
And that was definitely a lonely time. It was great for like your own personal mental training, but to like keep the stoke alive, you definitely need to do it with other people,
Hmm.
right? So like I saw you join a camp and also do races with other people in a group, and that's just a completely different experience than just training uh and doing a run by yourself. Still very valuable to do those runs by yourself, don't get me wrong, but that added element of just having friends to do it with, and having a group to like share your stuff with, um, is just massive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. It's such a cool community. Like even through this whole little like legs experiment, whatever I'm calling it right now, um, making these connections. Because yeah, I've been running sort of by myself for so long. And one day I was out on the trails and I met this one dude, and that turned into knowing like or getting introduced to the Hood to Coast team that I was on, and like all that goodness. But yeah, man, like it's interesting. It's like half like actively seeking and then half just being open to sort of like being cool with whatever comes your way kind of thing. So I can't
Yeah.
agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that. So speaking kind of on that, um, you're far along. Your running journey is more of a lifestyle, like you said. But who do you have to thank for where you are right now in your running lifestyle journey?
So there are two people that I want to thank, and then there's a wider community that I want to thank. Actually, three people that I want to thank. So first up is my buddy Ben. He was the first one to convince me to get back into training, get back into running, and eventually go for my first marathon. So he was doing the Bangkok full marathon, and then he was like, "Hey Glenn, do you want to sign up and train together? You can do the half marathon, I'll do the full." And then once I finished that half marathon, it was my first international race. Because I was thinking like, why would I run in Bangkok? It's like so hot here, right? Anyways, after I finished that race, he literally all he said was, "You're pretty much halfway to a marathon. You might as well just knock it out if it's in your bucket list, right?"
Yeah,
And him just being like, "You're just halfway there." I was like, "Okay, I'll just continue training." And yeah, that was a huge shift in my mindset. Um, and then next up, I want to thank my buddy Darren, who was the one that challenged me to do the 100K ultra with him just weeks. It was 2 weeks after I did my first 50K
dude.
ultra. And I accepted for the wrong reasons. I think I didn't respect trails really. I thought I could just David Goggins my mindset through it. But really my body wasn't fully recovered from my first trail experience.
Hmm.
So I got to 65 kilometers in that race, and my body just completely shut down, started cramping up in the worst way. And yeah, it just felt like I couldn't mindset my way through the rest of it. And yeah, DNFing was literally not part of my vocabulary. I didn't even know what the acronym meant
Hmm.
until like that day. And I honestly didn't thought I never thought it would be like part of my vocabulary, thinking that I was like so mentally strong, or like that just wasn't part of my persona at all. And yeah, it just got humbled really quick. And that experience kind of just served as a cornerstone memory for me, because now I just do races that you know are put me in really beautiful places, are organized really well. I also respect the course a lot more, and I respect the training that I do. So yeah, I just love that memory of me DNFing, and it's really catapulted me into just training smarter and harder and for better races.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was huge. And then the third person is probably my coach, Zoe Rome. Um, right after I DNF'd, about a month after feeling sorry for myself, I was like, okay, there are better ways to train for races other than just going for a long run. So one of my friends from San Diego, her name's Thais, she was like, you should you should listen to the DNF podcast by Trail Runner Magazine. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. I want to hear about other people, other athletes DNFing and all of that, and the things that they learned from it. And the host of that podcast was Zoe Rome.
Well,
And yeah, I just reached out to her. She was coaching. She has her running club or running community is called Microcosm Running. They're based out of Colorado, but everybody's from all over. And yeah, we just celebrate each other. And you know, the Facebook group is like super active, and Zoe has just been pivotal in shaping my training plan, checking up on me every day through the training plan, and just giving me tips and helping me learn and all of that. So I've huge appreciation for her and everybody that's part of that club. And then lastly, this is a community shout out, Bangkok runners. I wouldn't be able to run the trails without in Thailand without them, because they've shown me all the cool spots. And there are some really great expats. It's mostly a club of expats, but there are obviously a bunch of other Thais that run within Bangkok runners. And yeah, it's just a great community, full of people that come from great backgrounds. And it's been awesome.
Nice, dude. That sounds incredible. So when I get over to Bangkok, you're gonna have to show me around and introduce me to some of these people because it sounds
Yeah.
absolutely thrilling to be frank.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of training, Zoe, and helping you with some training plans, what races do you have coming up that you want us to keep an eye on?
Yeah. So I guess the next big race that I plan on doing is in December. It's the Thailand by UTMB. I've done the 80K and I've done the 100 mile, but I really want to work on my speed. So I'm gonna do the 50K and see if I could just, you know, give it a really good fast effort. I've never
Nice.
really, most of my ultras and my trail runs have just been to finish and just well, you're always going to enjoy the race, but for the most part, I think like now that I feel like I've gotten a hold in with my trail legs and all of that, I definitely want to kind of test the upper limit of, you know, how fast can I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I just want to call this out real quick because we started sort of at a marathon being your bucket list item, and then training to get to that like 13.1 basically, and then your friend saying you're basically there, just keep going. And now you're talking about, well, I want to just do a 50K to work on my speed. Like that's a pretty sweet transition to go from like that's my bucket list to like, okay, fuck it, I'll just try it. I'll just do a 30 miler because I've got to work on my speed anyways. Like
Yeah.
might as well. That's really awesome, dude. That's really, I don't know, it's just kind of like it's cool to like actually see the progression come to life. That's really rad. So
Yeah.
call that
It's
out.
it's even cooler, not to toot my own horn a little bit, but
Oh,
you
right
know,
here.
I ran my first marathon in 2019 and it's 2022.
Damn,
So
dude.
like it's crazy to know like what, I don't know, to find out what you're capable of
Yeah.
if you like really double down on a sport. And it just gives me a wider appreciation for people that like specialize in something, whether it's a hobby or it's their career or building a business. Like I have much greater profound respect for people that put in the hard work
Yeah.
to do the things that they do.
Yeah, man. Well, you've done it, so I'm stoked. I think people, listening to this are gonna be stoked too, hopefully. So that said, what else do you want to share? What else do you want to talk about? I mean, you can do a shout out to Nomad Wolf when you get that podcast back off the ground.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I do actually have a couple of episodes that I do need to release for Nomad Wolf. One of them was is with Lucy Bartholomew from
Okay.
Solomon. But yeah, I guess like some parting words. You know, if you're thinking about getting into running or just getting into a sport or getting onto the trails, I feel like it's just opened up a completely different world for me and a different world to see more of the world. You know, I've spoken about this earlier in the podcast, but you know, running is a great forcing function to just get you out of the house and even more so to put you in places that, you know, you might have never dreamed of expecting yourself to land in, right? And like for example, I don't think I would have gone and seen the Alps if I didn't have the dream to run the CCC at UTMB,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just beyond grateful to not only see the Alps from a tourist perspective, but to like circumnavigate it, well, halfway circumnavigate it from Courmayeur, Italy, through Switzerland, and ending in France
Yeah.
in like one of the biggest running events of the year, right? And yeah, it's just, you have a ton of fun when you dedicate yourself to something like that, whether it's running or even whatever that challenges you. So I just challenge everyone who's listening to see more of the world through these events, make friends along the way, and have fun and make memories.
Dude, it's what it's all about. I love it. Glenn, I can't thank you enough, man, for sitting down with us. I really, really, truly enjoyed this. And yeah, I think we've got a lot of great stuff here, and I hope this inspires some people to get out there and I don't know, see the world on feet, man. That's what it's
Yeah,
all about. Awesome.
100%.
Yeah,
Thanks,
dude.
Will, for having me on. And yeah, I'll reach out and we'll get you on the Nomad Wolf
All
podcast
right,
soon.
that sounds perfect, man. All right, dude. Well, have a great rest of your day. Safe travels back across the ocean, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, man.
My
Take
deal. Good.
care. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.